Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Scholastically Natalie. I hope that I have managed to find the good ratio of microphone closeness to mouth, that this is actually a pretty okay sound volume to have this at. Okay, so I would like to kind of get into another series that I was debating on doing called Let's Roll, and that one's, centered around Dungeons and Dragons, as the name implies. And today I wanted to start off with, a topic that I'm sure there are plenty of videos about on YouTube. It's a super basic question, or at least a pretty basic topic about designing a character in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, at this point, I am not talking about physically, I'm talking about actually having the concept and the backstory. I'm also not talking about building a character. I'm not a min-maxer. I occasionally do things for flavor. I occasionally don't. Again, I'm not one of the people who get into numbers. Okay, so anyways, welcome to Let's Roll. Again, this is presented by me, Scholastically Natalie. I feel very extra for putting this in. Okay, so I have a pretty simple philosophy on designing characters. This is the steps that I personally use, which is why it's called a simple philosophy. This doesn't mean that if you don't follow this, you're incorrect. This is just, I think it's pretty easy to do, and I think it generally has the best results. So, for me, my first basic plan is to just, give my DM, a 5-sentence summary. I'm not kidding, my first character had, a 5-sentence backstory. So, I literally just gave my DM the bare bones of the backstory, and I was like, hey, would this fit in your world? Or is this, not feasible? Because my biggest thing is always that I never want to get too specific. Because, again, I want to present my concepts and then adjust them. So, if I get this idea, I don't want to, lock into it and develop this huge, elaborate backstory and then, hit up my DM and be like, sorry, that doesn't really fit. And I'd just be like, oh, cool, great, that's fine. When I was designing my backstory for literally my first character, I literally sent him sentences with parentheses and then in all caps, name of Elven capital, because I didn't even know the names of these countries. I was literally just like, please fill this in. I don't know what any of these names are. So, I literally just gave him free reign to be like, oh, you'd be from this city in this part of the country, which is located over here. And I was like, great, that works just fine for me. Because, as always, especially if you're on a homebrew world, the DM knows what the countries are going to be like, or if they need to make some shit up, your backstory gives them ample opportunity to do so. So lastly, I've got fit your ideas to the world. So a spot where that kind of happened was we started campaign 2, our main campaign, and we decided to do Aetherpunk. Well, my DM decided Aetherpunk. We were all like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. Because this is a thousands of year prequel to our previous campaign. Anyways, you don't need to know that. I can talk about D&D way too much. And so none of us know anything about Aetherpunk. All we know is that it's steampunk, but with Aether instead of steam. So we were all just had zero knowledge about this world that my DM had so wonderfully presented to us. And so we were all kind of we're not really sure what to do with our characters. So I decided to make an elf. As always, I only make elves, honestly. I'm starting to reach the ends of my elves, though, so I'm gonna have to try a new race. But my elf, I wanted to not really tie into worshiping the gods, because of course Aetherpunk is a technological revolution, much like how Steam was a revolution. So it was very interesting to see the concept of man is achieving these things and the gods may have helped them, but anything that comes out of this Aetherpunk kind of setting is by humans themselves versus all of this is blessed by the gods. And our entire party was pretty much yeah, screw the gods, we did this by ourselves. And so then I was like, why the heck is my character gonna end up on this other continent? Why is she here? What is she doing here? And so I had to be like, hey, can can her parents have died in the stereotypical tragic backstory and I'm trying to get revenge? But so that I have a reason for having my magical item, they were artisans. And he was like, sure. So that's where I was at. And it works really well. I actually enjoy my character. I don't play into much about the revenge stuff because it's not something she cares about right now. So it's pretty nice just to kind of chill and have all that down there. And lastly, I say be ready for unexpected changes because I, as a DM, am incredibly evil, which you will see more about that, but my characters will give me loopholes in their backstories or things that they kind of just like stated as fact, and I'm like, yeah, but what if that wasn't true? And so they've gotten quite a few twists that they were not expecting during our campaign. So as always, don't get so in love with your backstory that if your DM like changes things or like wants to surprise you, that you get upset. Because I mean, my main thing is, how is it going to be fun if you know anything and everything that can be used against you? Like, yes, I think it's fun to be paranoid, but no, I don't think it would be fun to essentially know everything about the people who might be coming after you or who you might encounter that can cause you issues. That's so much less fun for me. Of course, if you'd like to play like that, that's fine too. So, next up we have designing personality, and I know that there's like two main kind of like fields when it comes to that, where everybody says like pick somebody that's completely opposite of you or pick one trait about yourself that you want to emphasize. And I think those are actually really good philosophies. I tend to slam for one of my traits and then it's just my entire character. Like, it essentially becomes like their biggest conviction. So like for my first character, I really emphasized devotion and like dedicating your life to something, because I have that drive, but none so as strong as that character. Like, she was a little bit terrifying. And then like my second character, I emphasized the fact that I am rather cunning and manipulative when needs to be. I prefer not to lie to people, but if I have to twist things around, I know how to, I can think like that, I guess I should say. Thankfully, I still have a moral compass. And so, of course, if I wanted to do something opposite of me, I would probably try to be somebody with, like, absolutely zero morals. Because even if I'm playing, like, a lawless character, I still have at least one key moral that they stick to. So, like, to have somebody who just does not care would be interesting, but I also feel like it would be hard to play for me. So then secondly, you need convictions or at least motivations. Like, if your character doesn't have anything to believe in and they don't have anything they're striving towards, then it's kind of pointless. Like, so for example, our one friend doesn't really like to make like concrete decisions. Like, he doesn't have an opinion on stuff. So his characters like never have motivations, which is fine. Or should I say, they don't have really obvious motivations. But his first character in our campaign, he at first just wanted to travel with us, and then he started to like our characters and care about them. And so then staying with the party and like protecting them and making sure we can get through things okay was his motivation. And that was just, it was nice to see, and it was a really subtle motivation. Like, it doesn't have to be like, ooh, I need to get revenge for my parents' murder. It can still be like, I want to protect my friends. But if you're just kind of like, I don't care about anything, it's not fun for the people around you, I guess I should say. Like, you might be having fun, but for everybody else, it's kind of just like, well, what do you want then? I guess the main way to phrase that is like, again, my first character, she was a cleric. So, as I do with clerics, she would never, ever, ever betray her god. I made her a zealot. Literally, that's what I did. Just completely unquestioning, destroy anything blasphemous. There's just, if her god says do it, she just does it, no questions. Which honestly, I low-key wanted my DM to take advantage of and be like, you know, go murder this dude. And I would have been like, sweet, bam. But I wasn't serving a god like that. But like also motivations, like, you can have multiple motivations for a character. Like, my current character for the main campaign that I'm playing in, her ultimate goal is to get revenge for her parents' murder, but that's kind of not feasible right now because the world's ending. We're playing an apocalypse campaign. And so now her new goal currently is to establish a place that is safe and start like dealing with information to become an information broker, because ultimately if things settle back down and the other continent that she was on still exists, she can still hunt down that killer. It can still be used for that, but other things that she might be kind of like, I don't want to do that, she might do them in order to build this settlement, if that makes sense. Number 3, bonds and flaws. So a lot of what people like to do is at least be like, oh, well, like, my character doesn't have any flaws. Or to be like, oh, well, like, they love everyone. Which, admittedly, was a lot of our first party. But our second party, I made the conscious decision to have my character only trust 2 people in the party. And even then, it's mostly 1. And then, of course, her main flaw is that she does not care about the rest of the party, and they know that. Like, my biggest contention was with another member of the party because my character didn't like him, and he did not like my character because I was sneaky and manipulative and liked to stab people. And he thought that kind of behavior was cowardly. And so, like, that is a flaw, is that she would rather sneak around in the dark than do something in the open. And like my other original character, her main flaw was that she was ready to just tank through stuff that she shouldn't tank through. And so lastly, I think every character should have a breaking point, which is just a point where maybe they'd leave the party, maybe they'd do something drastic, maybe they would give up on their main faith or like a main attachment. And it's something that I generally don't think about a lot for like my characters, but when it reaches a point where I'm like, how would my character feel about that? And if it's something where my character would be like, yeah, no, I'm not taking part in this, she'd leave. And I think that's always something to consider. Like, if you like your character, then make them somebody who can roll the punches. Okay, so I have a lot of opinions about this. I apologize if this is getting weirdly preachy. Okay, so I have examples because I recently graduated from college. So the first character that I ever made, literally, her name was Evanaria. She was a Wood Elf Grave Cleric who was the zealot for a death god, and pretty much was just like, yep, I am so down for anything my god tells me to do. Like, it was intense. So the main backstory for her was that she was escaping from an arranged marriage. Like, literally, I sent my DM like 3 sentences where it was like, nobles in like the Elven Society who arranged for her to marry this guy, and she ran away like probably like a couple days before their wedding because she didn't want to be with him, and her family like doesn't care about her because she was the second born, so she wasn't going to inherit anyways, and like that's why she's a cleric, because she just got yeeted into the temple. And so later we have returned to the Elven country, and my DM's like, hey, by the way, that guy your parents engaged you to, that's the prince. And I was just like, wait, what? Yeah. You know, we get to the Elven city and, you know, everybody's bowing to me, and I'm just like, this is not what I was expecting. It was pretty amusing, and I really enjoyed that surprise. Mostly because my DM was just kind of like, yeah, tell me the dude's name. I was like, okay, sweet, here's a name. And then it like got brought up like a while later, and I was just like, oh. And then I have my like motivation, and then also the bond, which, I mean, I put self-sacrifice on here mostly because she kind of evolved. Basically, my character got PTSD because in our original party, our one friend had to quit playing, so his character had to drop out. We went into a too high-level dungeon, so like our paladin died in it, and my cleric couldn't save him, so she was very upset. And then Another one of our friends ended up having to quit playing altogether. And so that character had to leave. And then another one of our friends had a falling out with us. So her character had to leave. So then, like, my cleric was like, all of my friends are either dead or have abandoned me. And, like, then she, like, picks up all these new people and she's like, well, I have to keep them safe. And then, like, some of them die or leave. And she's just like, oh my god. Like, I have to do whatever I can to, like, keep these people safe. And, like, it was just this entire thing where it was just, the story worked really well with the trait that I developed that was tanking, because my cleric was pretty much like, I am going to throw myself into the middle of this fight, mostly because at first I wasn't getting hit as much, and then halfway through the year my GM and I both acknowledged that the best part of battle plans is to kill the cleric first. So then I died quite a bit. And then, of course, like I said, my main trait was devotion. Like, my fellow players were kind of like, Natalie, you're concerning us with your cleric, because my cleric was pretty much just like, I got a vision to go see this temple, so that's where we're going. I don't care if it takes us 2 months, we're going there and we're gonna investigate it. And then it, like, at one point, I may or may not have attracted the attention of Aboleth, because we went into an abandoned temple that was being used to worship something that wasn't a god, and it wasn't okay for them to do that, and I destroyed it, and then the Aboleth tried to eat us because that was its nest. And then, like, again, bonds to the OG party is that I kind of, like, characterized it as, you know, these were the first people that weren't trying to use her for something, and yada yada yada. So she really liked them, and then they all died, and she got PTSD. And then lastly, I made her entire personality be based around keeping people safe. Like, it was actually really fun because I started the campaign, because this was a 2-year campaign, by the way. I started the campaign with her being kind of like, we went from level 1 to level 17. Let me make that clear. She started the campaign being pretty much like, oh, I just want to heal people, and I really like my god, and, like, I'm just really into things. And then it got to the point where, like, a year and a half later, she was, like, torturing people to keep her friends safe. It was a bit of a downfall. But her god still liked her, so that was fine with her. Anyways, I'm totally gonna ramble so much about my D&D characters. I am so sorry in advance. But you're still listening, so you're just getting subjected to it. Okay, so then my second character, the one that I am currently playing in our main campaign where the world is ending, her name is Coradena, and she has a magical item that is a mildly sentient snake that turns into different weapons, and his name is Slith. I had way too much fun with that snake. Okay, anyways, so like I said, her backstory was revenge for, like, barbarians that murdered her parents. It is entirely unconnected to anything else that was happening in this campaign, because our DM was kind of like, I think because last campaign we all spent so much time dealing with other people's backstories that he decided we weren't going to deal with anybody's backstories this campaign, which I think made some people a little bit disappointed, and I definitely would have liked to see a little bit more of just subtle acknowledgments. I think not even like, we're going to deal with it, but like, oh, that's a thing that I might want to conserve for later. Although, to be honest, we were all still waiting for the world to end because we acknowledged that this was a world-ending campaign. But yes, the main thing I emphasized was manipulation, all my Slytherin house traits, which is what I got sorted into, by the way. Hello. And her being sneaky and low-key not caring about people. And so then my main bond that I kept with her was literally the cleric and the first warlock that we have. And that's it. And it's mostly the cleric because she knows that the warlock will just, like, go away if he wants to. And then, of course, her biggest flaw is that she doesn't trust people. Like, life would be so much easier if she just trusted the other members of her party. But she's paranoid, so she doesn't. And I decided that her breaking point would be if she, like, puts in all this effort and then nothing comes of it. Like, ultimately in the end. Yeah, hi, welcome to Coradena, who has a bunch of snake imagery. Okay, so then my third example is Fiora, I don't know why I didn't put any descriptions of her. She's my Eladrin cleric. She's actually a light cleric, which was funny because I was playing her in a Dragon Age. There we go. Dragon Age Inquisition campaign that my roommate wanted us to try playing in and try DMing with, and it was actually really funny because my DM like was literally sitting there and she was like, yeah, I don't know, I can't really see a place for light clerics in my campaign, and I just looked at her and I'm like, that's the one that I wanted to do. And she was like, oh, that's fine, you can do that then. But I know that I said devotion for my first cleric, but as you will learn, I'm pretty sure that all my clerics are just zealots, because why wouldn't you want to devote yourself to an all-powerful god? I mean, honestly. And so, but this one I chose to do loyalty because I find it a bit of a different faucet, because I made her unquestioningly loyal to her wizard companion, who is a Kenku named Tash. I had a lot of fun trying to recruit my one friend to be Pash because I mostly sent to him, come be my chicken, and he was like, what? But that was my main thing, is that she was incredibly loyal both to Pash and to her god. And those were the only people she was loyal to and that she really cared about. I found playing her that she was a lot more apathetic than my other characters. Like, I feel like my other characters, they were like way more involved in things, and like Fiora ended up being just kind of like a step removed and like pretty willing to just like follow the flow and like go with it, man. And it was definitely an interesting experience, and I don't know, I don't mind playing like that, but I do feel a little bit funky when people give me orders, but that's because I have a control complex. And I decided that her main breaking point would definitely be betrayal by either her god or Pash, because she really likes them. Luckily, that didn't happen, and the campaign ended happily. Okay, so then my willing victim, because this was not somebody that I made, but somebody that one of my roommates played, was Tharmala, who, let me tell you, I was really mean to when I was DMing. Like, we both enjoyed it. She was a willing victim, which is why I have labeled her as such, because when she was joining the campaign, she literally just was like, can I give her the amnesia backstory? And I was like, are you sure you want to do that with me? Like, I realize we haven't known each other that long, but like, you do know what that will entail. So I just got her like entire full reign over her backstory, besides like the last 15 years of her life, which she was a dwarf. That was like 100 extra years. No, because she made her almost close to dying. That was so long. So then I was really mean because she assumed she knew all these things about the country that the dwarves came from, and about like how her character like was loyal, and like how her character knew things, and I just flipped every single piece of that around on its head. And by the end of the campaign, she was just like, what? Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with that campaign. And then she really made an emphasis on like caring, and really with like neutrality, as in like, because I made a point to be like her goddess, because she was the goddess of healing. I was like, she didn't care if you were healing an enemy or an ally. Like, she just doesn't want you to just let a person die if you can stop them from dying. So it's really funny because she spent a lot of time that campaign being like, is it okay if I heal this person? And I'm like, dude, your goddess does not care. Which of course ironically worked against her, which is why goodness is on the next line, because she was in a campaign full of evildoers. I don't know why my campaign became the one for all of them to become murder hobos, but there was a lot of murdering and a lot of just lying and scamming people in general. It was pretty amusing to facilitate. I definitely do not resent any inch of lying and betrayal that they did. I found it 10 out of 10 amusing. But her only main two bonds were her deity and the horse that she stole from the Dwarven army, named Hades. He was very aggressive. I roleplay horses very strangely. I'm just gonna put it out there now. But the main reason my campaign was a bit more relaxed than like our main campaign, so people were like trying out different ideas or different classes, or like if they didn't enjoy like what their character was doing or how they were going about stuff, I was like, sure, yeah, you can just swap them in and out as long as you are still content and happy with gameplay. So that is how a lot of people try out a lot of different classes and combinations. But for Tharmala, I think I put her breakpoint at betrayal, not because she didn't yet get betrayed by her country already, but if she was like betrayed by her deity or like her party, I think she'd be pretty upset, like full on betrayal. They all kind of like stabbed each other gently in the side, but there was no direct stabbing in the back. Anyways, I have no idea if anybody is going to enjoy listening to me ramble about D&D for however long this has been, but I hope you enjoy some of my thoughts on building interesting characters with backstories, because I've really found that, like, playing with some of my friends, that, like, when you get really into making this super intricate, just, like, so many details upon details about your backstory, that you end up concentrating too much on it. Like, I don't really know how to explain this. It's like I'm gonna call it the protagonist phenomenon. It's where you feel like your story is most important. And while that is okay in some cases, because at least how I play D&D with my friends is that it's a cooperative endeavor. So it makes everybody else feel kind of like sidelined and like you don't really care about what they're trying to do when anything comes around and you're like, it must be related to my backstory. Oh, it must be something to do with this. Oh, it must be something to do with my quest. And it's kind of like, well, it might not. There's 6 other people at this table who it might relate to. You might, in fact, not know anything at all. And I feel like when you can get really caught up on certain things and like just be like, I don't know how to describe it except like the like early role-playing phenomenon where like if you were a part of like Google Plus or like those really early forums where like, you know, we have to put asterisks around like actions and or parentheses, you know the old role-playing styles. When you first play with somebody or like role play with somebody and like every line they're like, oh my god, I make sure to mention that my scarf slips down so that you can see the faint hint of a scar, to like purposely be like, please ask me about my tragic backstory that I as like the character doesn't want to talk about, but me as the person wants you to like be interested in and demand answers. Whereas like if you play in a group setting, people just don't care. Like you have no idea how many times we have sat at the table, at least in the campaign that I'm running, where somebody's tried to been like, ooh, ask me about my tragic backstory, and everybody's just kind of like looked at them and then just moved on. Mostly because all of their characters were giant jerks. So they wouldn't have cared because they were all like completely apathetic to other people except themselves, and it was beautiful to watch. But anyways, you end up feeling like all your stuff is the most important and that people need to pay attention to it and like that people should be trying to like figure your character out. Whereas it's a lot like real life. Whereas if you don't start talking about it, I don't care. I'm not going to sit here and beg for you to tell me about every inch of your past life. Like I don't mind if you tell me about it, but I'm not going to beg for it. And I feel like that's something people forget. Anyways, I hope you've gotten something out of this. I'm not sure what. If you have any thoughts on anything I've said, feel free to comment them. I would be deeply interested in knowing if you think along similar lines, if you think people should be really detailed in their backstories, if you think people should be, you know, a little bit less detailed and like work a lot with their DM, because I found that at least with my players, they were like scared to ask me to do things, or at least a lot of my friends are scared to ask my DM if they can include things when it's kind of like, he's not going to bite you. The worst thing he's going to do is say, yeah, that doesn't really fit. So it's interesting. But yes, please tell me if you've enjoyed this or not. I enjoy talking about D&D a lot. I have a lot of fun stories, I think. But if you don't want to hear about it, or you think that I might be a little bit too ranty about this sort of thing, that's okay too. But yes, welcome to the Let's Roll series, where I have way too many opinions about D&D. And with that, Scholastically Natalie is out.